Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into
Okay.
The Reality of Gender Roles, a book that
Okay.
a lot of you have been asking about,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
specifically, a lot of you are, coming from the men's rights perspective
Right.
and the red pill philosophy.
Oh,
And we're going to kind of using that lens as we go through this book. We have
yep.
excerpts from the book itself,
Okay. Great.
as well as some other historical and societal context to kind of round this out.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating topic, and I
Yeah.
think what's really interesting is the author really tries to take this historical perspective of the evolution of gender roles
Yeah.
and how, he argues that they weren't just these arbitrary
Wow.
societal constructs. They were rooted in biology and the needs of early human societies.
Right.
He goes all the way back to like the Spartans and the Romans,
Yeah. Well,
where traditional gender roles were prominent,
right.
and really kind of looking at how did those societies thrive with that structure.
That's so interesting because it's like it almost pushes back on the idea
It
that
does.
these traditional roles are somehow outdated or oppressive.
Exactly. And that,
I'd love to know more about how he
well,
connects it to modern day challenges.
well, he really gets into this
Yeah.
idea that a lot of the problems that men face today
Mm.
are because of a disconnect
Ah.
between their innate biological predispositions
Mhm.
and what modern society is telling them.
Okay.
So, for example, men are naturally wired to be providers and
Right.
protectors.
Yeah.
But then we're often told that these instincts are toxic or outdated.
So it's like a mismatch between
Yeah.
our evolutionary heritage
Exactly.
and our current
Yeah.
social environment.
Totally. Yeah. And he thinks that this is the root of a lot of the frustration
Yeah,
and the confusion that men feel.
that makes sense.
And this is where this red pill analogy comes in.
Uh,
It's about waking up to the realities of these gender dynamics
okay.
and realizing that the traditional narratives we've been fed may not be the whole truth.
Yeah.
It's like seeing the Matrix for the first time, as
Yeah.
he puts it.
Wow. Yeah, I could see how that would be a jarring experience for a lot of men,
Oh, absolutely.
especially those who have really bought into the idea that men are inherently privileged and that gender roles are just
Right.
social constructs. It really challenges a lot of deeply held beliefs.
Completely. And he's not afraid to, he dives headfirst into these
Yeah.
controversial topics.
Yeah.
He even talks about feminism.
Oh, okay.
And, while he acknowledges the positive advancements for women,
Mm.
he also points out that there have been some unintended consequences for men.
So he's not saying that he's anti-feminist, but he's kind of
No, not at all.
pointing out some of the
Yeah, that's
the other side of the coin.
I think a lot of men in the red pill community really feel like
Yeah.
their voices aren't being heard in this.
I understand
Uh,
that. Mainstream feminist discourse.
Yeah,
Like there's this fear of being labeled sexist or misogynistic
right.
if they raise concerns.
Totally. And he addresses that directly.
Okay.
He talks about this tendency to kind of demonize traditional masculinity as toxic.
Yeah.
And, I can only imagine how damaging that can be
Yeah.
to men's self-esteem and their sense of purpose.
That makes sense, especially if you're in a marriage and you're trying to live up to these traditional roles of provider and protector,
Yeah.
but then society's telling you you're wrong.
You're getting these mixed messages, right? And
Yeah.
then he gets into this whole concept of the marriage plantation,
Okay.
which I know is something that is talked about a lot
Well,
in the red pill community.
Yes.
And, it might be uncomfortable for some, but
yeah.
he really argues that men often end up bearing the brunt of the burdens in traditional marriage,
Right.
financially, emotionally.
Yeah, the marriage plantation analogy really resonates with a lot of men who feel like they're just
I can see that.
working themselves to the bone.
Yeah.
And then they end up feeling unappreciated or taken advantage of.
Yeah, he talks about that sense of resentment.
I'm curious. I'm curious to hear more about his take.
Yeah, well, he even argues that,
Yeah.
the legal and social structures
No.
surrounding marriage often actually disadvantage men,
Okay.
especially when it comes to things like divorce and child custody.
Right.
And he even suggests that some women exploit these structures
Wow.
to their advantage.
That's a pretty bold statement.
It is. It is.
I'm sure that
It definitely doesn't
ruffle some feathers.
shy away from controversy.
I think it's important to have these conversations even if they're uncomfortable. Because we're not going to find solutions
Exactly.
if we're not willing to talk about the problems.
Yeah, he wants men to understand these systems they're operating within,
Yeah.
whether it's the legal system, the social system,
Mhm.
even the family system. And he really believes that knowledge is power.
Okay.
He says once you see the matrix for what it is,
Right.
then you can start making better choices.
So it's about taking the red pill, waking up to the truth, and then
Yeah.
what? What do you do?
Right, and that's where this idea of setting boundaries comes in.
Okay.
He argues that men need to be assertive, they need to communicate their needs,
Right.
and enforce those boundaries in all aspects of their life, including their marriages.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys struggle with setting boundaries.
Especially in relationships, right?
Yeah.
Because they've been conditioned to be the nice guy
Right.
and put everyone else's needs first.
Exactly.
But he's saying that can backfire and lead to resentment and even exploitation.
It's almost like you need to define your own boundaries.
Yeah.
And then almost like a new covert contract.
Exactly. And that's a key point he makes, is that you can renegotiate that contract.
Right.
He believes men have more agency than they realize, and that they can create relationships that are more fulfilling and empowering.
So we've talked about these historical roots of gender roles.
Yeah.
This red pill philosophy, this idea of setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Where does he go from here?
Well, he really starts to unpack a lot of the specific challenges that men face in modern society, including the pressure to provide legal disadvantages they face in divorce and child custody cases, the negative portrayal of men in the media and academia.
It's a lot.
It is. But I think it's important to really...
Yeah, this is a
long episode, but it's all connected.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. We really need to help our listeners understand these forces at play in their own lives.
Absolutely.
Especially if they're feeling trapped in their marriage.
Right. And he offers some really thought-provoking insights into how men can
navigate these challenges.
Okay.
He talks about things like building strong male friendships, reclaiming traditional masculine skills and values, and even exploring alternative relationship models.
Like what?
Like cohabitation or non-monogamy.
Wow. Those are some pretty radical ideas.
They can be a lot.
Especially for guys coming from a traditional background.
For sure, but he acknowledges that these ideas might not be for everyone.
Right.
But he believes that men need to at least be open to exploring different options, finding what works best for them. He encourages men to question everything.
Yeah.
You know, everything they've been taught about relationships, gender roles, their own identity.
This is getting deep.
It is.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
I know. We've got a lot more to cover.
Yeah. Let's take a break here. And then when we come back, we'll dive into some of those specific strategies he outlines.
Sounds good.
For men to reclaim their power and create a more fulfilling life.
I'm looking forward to it. You know, one of the things that I found really fascinating about this book is how he connects all of these individual challenges to the broader trends that we see in society.
Right.
He actually argues that the rise of feminism and what he calls woke culture has shifted the balance of power in ways that often disadvantage men.
Yeah, I think a lot of men feel like they're walking on eggshells these days.
Right.
Like they're afraid to say or do anything that can be perceived as offensive or insensitive.
And he talks about that fear, you know, how it can be paralyzing. It prevents men from being themselves, from asserting themselves in their relationships and their careers. And he really believes it's crucial for men to break free in this self-censorship.
But how do you do that when you're constantly being told that you're this privileged oppressor?
Exactly. And he argues it's like a catch-22.
It is. And he argues that it starts with understanding the narratives that are shaping public perception.
Right.
He believed that the media often portrays men in a negative light. You know, the bumbling idiot, the incompetent father, the violent aggressor.
Right.
And he's not just talking about fictional characters. He points to real-life examples of how men are often demonized.
That's a good point.
In the news.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it that way, but it makes sense.
Yeah, if you're constantly seeing those negative portrayals, it's going to affect you. Even if you don't realize it.
Subconsciously.
Yeah, exactly. And so he encourages men to be critical consumers of media. Question the narratives.
Don't just take everything at face value.
You accept it blindly. And to seek out alternative sources of information. Okay, that makes sense, but it feels like such an uphill battle. How can men push back against this tide of negativity when it seems like it's coming from all sides?
He believes it starts with building strong male communities. He argues that men need to connect with each other support each other
Yeah.
and create a counter narrative
Okay.
to those dominant cultural messages.
So finding like-minded.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he talks about the importance of male friendships,
Right.
mentorship, and shared activities
Right.
that allow men to express their masculinity in healthy and positive ways.
Yeah, I think that resonates with the married red pill community.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these guys are looking for
Exactly.
a sense of brotherhood.
Yeah, a sense of belonging.
Place to belong.
Absolutely.
Where they can really connect with other guys.
Yeah, he argues
They're going through
these communities can provide a safe space to share their experiences, to learn from each other, to challenge each other to become better men.
That's interesting.
And he even suggests that they can be a force for social change.
Okay.
Advocating for policies that support.
So it's about coming together and then figuring out what can we do?
How can we
fix the situation?
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm curious to hear,
I'm curious.
What are some of his specific recommendations?
Yeah, what does he suggest?
Well, he has a lot of practical advice.
Okay.
Everything from joining existing groups.
Like what?
Like men's rights organizations, sports teams,
Mm-hmm.
to even just starting your own informal gatherings.
Like a poker night.
Exactly. Or a hiking group. Or
a book club.
Yeah, whatever it is that you're passionate about.
It doesn't have to be so formal.
No, it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
He encourages men to be proactive.
To reach out.
To other men.
Yeah, to guys who share their values.
Okay.
And to build that network of support and encouragement.
Yeah, because a lot of guys are looking for that, but they don't know where to start.
They don't know how.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it really is as simple as just taking that first step and reaching out.
Okay, so we talked about the importance of understanding these narratives, being critical consumers of media, building these strong male communities.
Yep.
What else does he suggest that men do?
Well, he talks a lot
and navigate these challenges.
The importance of personal development.
Okay.
He believes that men need to invest in themselves.
Okay, so work on yourself.
Yeah, develop your skills and talents.
Yeah.
Cultivate a strong sense of self-worth.
That makes sense because if you're feeling lost or insecure,
good about yourself,
it's hard to stand up for yourself.
It's hard to create the life that you want. And so he encourages men to pursue their passions, learn new things, take care of their physical and mental health, develop their emotional intelligence.
I think a lot of guys get so caught up in the daily grind of just working, that they forget to
take care of themselves.
Yeah, take care of themselves.
And he acknowledges that it's a balancing act, but he emphasizes that self-care is not selfish.
Okay.
It's essential.
It's like they say you can't pour from an empty cup.
Pour from an empty cup.
Right.
So you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Especially for these guys who are feeling the pressures of this marriage plantation.
Right.
They need to make sure they're not sacrificing their own well-being.
Set those boundaries.
Okay, so it's not just setting boundaries.
It's not just with your partner.
With your partner. It's setting boundaries with work, family, society in general.
Exactly.
Right, it's about creating a life that is sustainable and fulfilling.
Okay, this is all starting to make sense.
It's all connected.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about these challenges men face.
Right.
But what about solutions?
Oh, he definitely offers solutions.
Okay, does he offer any concrete steps?
Oh, absolutely.
That men can take to actually improve their lives?
He offers a whole toolbox of strategies, everything from practical tips.
Okay, like what?
On communication and conflict resolution to more philosophical advice on finding meaning and purpose.
Okay, I'm really interested in those practical tips.
Okay, yeah.
What kind of things does he suggest?
Well, one thing he talks about is the importance of being assertive without being aggressive.
Okay.
He encourages men to learn how to express their needs directly, clearly, without resorting to anger or manipulation.
That's good advice for anyone, really. It is, but it's especially important.
But I can see how it would be especially helpful
in the context
for men who are trying to renegotiate these covert contracts within their marriages.
Exactly.
So being able to clearly say what you want, what you need.
And he wants men to understand that they have a voice, that their needs matter, and they have the right
to be heard.
Create relationships that are mutually beneficial.
Okay.
So it's not about one person.
Yeah, this is starting to feel imbalanced.
It's finding a win-win situation.
Like there's hope for these men who are feeling lost or disillusioned.
Absolutely.
Okay, but what about the bigger picture?
Well,
does he offer solutions for addressing
He does.
the societal and cultural forces that are leading to these challenges for men in the first place?
He believes that men need to become more politically active.
Oh, wow.
Advocate for policies that support fathers and families and challenge the narratives that are shaping public perception. And he also encourages men to get involved in their communities, to mentor younger men, to be role models.
It's not just about
It's not just about fixing your own life. It's about creating a better world for all men.
Exactly. He believes that men have a vital role to play in society.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about so much.
We've covered a lot of ground.
This historical context, this red pill philosophy, setting boundaries.
All of these challenges.
All of these challenges men face, and then solutions.
And then these solutions.
And we haven't even talked about his ideas.
And we haven't even gotten into...
like raising the next generation.
Raising the next generation.
We're navigating the legal system.
Right.
So there's a lot more to unpack.
Yeah. I know this is a long episode, but there's so much to talk about.
It's a dense book.
It is a dense book.
But it's full of wisdom.
It really is.
And I think, the key takeaway is that men have more power and agency than they realize, and that they can choose to create a better future.
I think that's a good note to end on.
And for the world.
But before we do, let's take a moment to address our listeners directly.
Okay.
For those of you in the married red pill community who are trying to understand your own covert contracts, navigate these complexities of modern relationships, what do you think is the most important message?
Oh, that's a good question.
Take away from this.
I think the most important message is that you're not alone.
Okay.
There are millions of men out there who are struggling with similar challenges.
Yeah.
And there are resources and strategies that can help you.
Yeah.
You have the power to change your life, to create relationships that are more fulfilling and equitable.
That's a good point.
And to contribute to a better world for all men.
It's easy to feel isolated and hopeless when you're going through these challenges.
Yeah.
But there's a whole community
there is.
of men who understand.
Absolutely. And who are there
to support you. So, and for those of you who really want to dive deep and explore these topics, the author has a lot more to say in his book.
He does. He goes into a lot more detail.
The reality of gender roles.
Yeah, he really does provide a roadmap for men who are looking to reclaim their power.
And one thing that really struck me was how much he emphasized the importance of understanding the historical context of these issues.
Absolutely. That's a point that I think is often overlooked.
Yeah, we tend to just focus on the present.
Yeah, we get caught up.
Without really understanding.
Yeah, and he makes a really compelling case for understanding how these institutions...
Like what?
Like the family, the legal system, education, how they've been influenced by different ideologies over time.
Yeah, I think that's really important for men who are just trying to make sense of the world today.
If you don't understand how we got here...
How can you?
It's hard to see how we can create change.
Yeah.
He encourages men to look...
It's like uncovering a hidden history.
Beyond the surface, to question those assumptions and dig deep into the history and the ideologies.
So looking back to see how these happen.
And then figuring out, okay, how do we reclaim what's been lost?
Okay.
He's not saying we need to go back to the past.
Right.
But he is suggesting we need to learn from it.
Right, learn from the past.
Understand the strengths and weaknesses of different systems.
Yeah, that's a really valuable perspective.
Unintended consequences.
It's not about romanticizing the past. It's about using it to create a better future.
To inform our decisions moving forward.
And speaking of the future.
Yes.
I'm curious to hear more about his thoughts on raising the next generation of men.
Yeah, this is something he's really passionate about.
Okay.
He dedicates a significant portion of the book to this topic.
Okay.
And he really believes that fathers have a crucial role to play in shaping their son's character.
It's a tough time to be a young man today.
Yeah, there are a lot of conflicting messages.
Conflicting messages about masculinity.
Right, but he believes that by being present and involved and intentional in their parenting, fathers can instill the values and the skills.
So it's not just about telling them what to do.
No.
It's about
showing them by example.
Yeah, being the kind of man you want your son to become. Yeah.
And he really emphasizes teaching boys responsibility, accountability, the importance of contributing to society.
Yeah, I think that's so important.
It is.
Boys need to see what healthy masculinity looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And he argues that by raising this generation of strong, confident, compassionate, purpose-driven men...
It's about empowering them to be the best versions of themselves.
For themselves.
Not just for them.
And for the world.
But for the world.
And ultimately, you know, I think that's what this whole book is about.
Yeah.
It's about empowering men to create a better world.
Not to just...
It's not about complaining. It's about taking action.
Yeah, taking action.
And creating solutions.
And one of the things I really appreciated...
is that he doesn't shy away.
He's not afraid to tackle...
on those tough topics.
Tough issues.
He talks about things like divorce, child custody.
Yeah, the things that people don't want to talk about.
The challenges of relationships. Yeah. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. He presents it in a straightforward and honest way.
Yeah.
But he does so with a sense of hope.
Yeah, there's an
optimism.
Yeah, he believes that men can overcome these challenges.
Okay.
They can create fulfilling relationships.
Yeah.
They can raise strong and successful sons.
It's a message of empowerment.
It is.
Not victimhood.
It's about taking control of your life.
Yeah.
And becoming the best version of yourself.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
And I have to say, this has been an incredibly...
It's been a pleasure.
Thought-provoking...
deep dive.
Talking about this with you.
I'm sure our listeners have a lot to...
I hope so.
Think about and digest.
This is a book that really challenges you to think critically.
It's not a book for the faint of heart.
It's not.
But it's a book that can... change your life.
Change your life.
And for those of you who are interested in exploring these ideas further,
absolutely,
you can find The Reality of Gender Roles on Amazon Kindle and
in Google Playbooks.
Playbooks.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. The author believes that men have this unique and vital role to play in the world, and it's time for them to step up and reclaim their rightful place as leaders, protectors, providers.
Absolutely.
What does that mean to you?
That's a good question.
How will you define masculinity?
Yeah, how will you
to own terms.
Take those insights and apply them?
How will you use your strengths and your experiences
to create a better future, a better world?
For yourself and for the world.
Those are the questions.
Yeah, those are the ones that
questions will
and on that note,
take with them.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely.
See you next time.
See you later.